Okay, so a one, a two, a three.
All right. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blue Star Rising, the Templar Awakening. Michael Henry Dunn here with my esteemed colleague and good friend, Reverend Maya Tumid. So, hello, Maya. How are you doing?
Hello, Michael. Well, I'm doing pretty good, and the sun is shining again today. We had some rain, which is good. We need the rain, but I'm glad we have a little sunshine right now.
Right. So you got the sun shining while behind you is the starry sky of Crestone and the
Ziggurat.
Crestone ziggurat.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. Right. Yes. Virtual backgrounds are a wonderful thing. Behind me is the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine in
Yeah,
Pacific
yeah. Get
Palisades,
around.
California, because I'm actually in California these days for a while. Evidently, we've got a fascinating subject here today in the Scarab Initiations, and I think a lot of people generally associate the scarab beetle, the symbol of it, with ancient Egypt, because that was popularized by a couple of recent movies. For example, The Mummy, Brendan Fraser, and of course, in that context in the story, is the scarab is this powerful symbol that then becomes replicates the thousands of horrifying beetles that crawl inside your skin and devour you from within.
I'm glad I didn't see that movie.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, they get under your skin, and then all their friends follow them inside, and your body is rippling with
Don't tell me. I can't. I
beetles
can't see what
within
you're
you
telling.
that are devouring you. But never mind, moving right along to the higher spiritual frequencies of this story.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, moving right along. So, the scarab, the origin of the symbol, what is being shared here in the video. It's about a 16-minute video in which you take us through, and this is a combination. This comes from a book, but is then expanded upon by Thoth. Right? This is
Yes, the book part is just basically the fact that there are these energy bodies and what this, and that's I think mostly what
so
is
those energy bodies and the names for them, like the Ka form and like that, those come from.
from the book. Yeah, from the book that I'm talking about, Faces of Christ. I'm not even sure the names come from that because those are Egyptian names. Honestly, it was so long ago and I don't remember exactly, but I know that what comes from the book specifically is the there's so many spiritual bodies, there's so many physical bodies, there's so many, the order of that. And there might be one or two words in each that just starts it out that comes from there, but the rest is from Thoth.
Yeah, and some of that I had heard before, and I believe is in fact of ancient Egyptian origin as understood.
Oh, okay.
Egyptologists.
Then
Yeah.
maybe he did put the names in the book. I couldn't remember that.
Right. Yeah, because like for example, the Ka form,
Mhm.
which you speak of as just the third of the bodies, I believe,
Yes.
which is spoken of as the etheric double of the body,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And for those who are interested in the work of Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist, that there's a book of his called Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, which is sort of an autobiography. And it's a fascinating book, but there's a point near the end when he is talking about a health crisis that he went through, in which he was close to death. Now, he wrote the book very near the end of his life, but this health crisis took place when he was like maybe in his mid to late 60s, early 70s, and he very nearly died. And he had an out-of-body, a near-death experience in which he left his body and he floated above the earth. And he had this sense of losing all identity with the incarnation as Carl Jung, the sense of loss of all the learning and wisdom, like all those, what we think of as the mind associations and learnings. And not that the soul doesn't retain them, but in this experience he had, it was as if he was losing all of that.
Mhm.
And he felt this profound sense of loss. But then as he moved up, there was this black pyramid, this small black pyramid with an entrance. And he was feeling drawn to go into this pyramid. And he knew that within this pyramid was his true brotherhood, his true spiritual family, where he really belonged. And it was like, I have this loss, I'm leaving all this behind, but now I am moving into my true identity and recovering my greater wisdom, my greater family, my greater brotherhood.
Beautiful.
And so, and as the soul will do something like that and make that choice, it's kind of like the golden thread gets cut and you're done, and the body just goes right, and you die. So he's at this very near point. And then he said, as he was about to enter the pyramid, and as he uses these very words, Jung does, he says, then swiftly rising up from the earth, I beheld the Ka form of my physician, of my doctor, who had been working with me to help heal him. That here comes the Ka form, in other words, the etheric double of this doctor, coming up from the earth to stop him from going into this pyramid and leaving earth behind. And that the doctor said to him, there is great protest on the earth at your leaving at this time. Like that there was some essential part of Jung's life purpose that was crucial for the unfoldment of a certain aspect of, Jung is enormously influential in many beautiful ways. And so he withdraws from entering the pyramid because the Ka form of his doctor came to stop him and warn him. But he said he had this realization in that moment that the doctor, in doing this, and perhaps he had done this, the doctor himself is asleep and he's in dream, but his Ka form undertakes this mission to stop Jung. He said, I perceive that the doctor placed himself at great risk to have his etheric double leave his body in this way and undertake this mission, that it made it quite possible that the doctor himself would soon die because his Ka form had separated from his body to such an extent.
Wow.
And that, in fact, that's what happened. Jung came back to his body, lived another 15 years, but the doctor became ill shortly thereafter and died.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to share that story as being an illustration of the Ka form, and Jung specifically knew of that Egyptian term for the third body as being the etheric double.
Okay, well, that must have come from the Faces of Christ then. The reason I'm so ignorant about it is because what I wrote was so many years ago. And I actually went online trying to find, because I don't have that book now, the Faces of Christ, and I was trying to find some quotes for it to see, what if he had the Egyptian terms in there. And I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere. So I didn't know. So now you're informing me that probably also came out of the book, the actual names, for each one.
Right, that those came from Egyptian sources that Jung also knew of, because of course Jung was, deeply immersed in various world cultures.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So those took that and said, yes, this is true information, and it's part of the Scarab Initiations. So then he opened that scroll, as he likes to say. Oops, sorry about that. And fleshed it in, from the perspective of the Thothic records.
Right. And, I found it really interesting. You and I were talking just a few minutes ago before the program began here about why is it bringing this forward right now? Okay, it's fascinating, Scarab Initiations, thousands of years ago, but you bring out, okay, and Thoth knew that this knowledge could and would be practiced in Egypt with him for several hundred years, but that it would be lost. It would be, secreted here and there, Hypatia and her disciples a couple thousand years later and elsewhere, but that it would be lost in terms of the beneficial practice of it to humanity at large, right?
Mhm.
And that because of the high state of his soul and his ability to see down timelines, that there were many subtle, perhaps small, but important consequences rippling across time. Infinitesimal ripples of consequences in hundreds of lives and in the flow of civilization, such that no holy action is ever really lost, even though it may seem like the lineage gets stopped or the civilization falls or priestesses are murdered, as we know they were, that his bringing forward the Scarab Initiations was intended to ripple across time in this way.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little more and how
well,
it's
I'm wondering-
available to us now today?
I'm thinking maybe we ought to show the video first, because then I can talk about it in a little greater depth. What do you think?
Yeah, certainly. Let's do that.
And then I can go into it from that, perspective and bring in some other pieces. But people are wondering, well, what is this? So let's kind of show it to them, and then they'll get,
right.
Okay, we can bring it into,
Of course, it makes all the sense in the world. And so with that in mind, we will now pause and let you enjoy this fascinating 15-minute activational video from Reverend Maya on the Scarab Initiations of Thothic of ancient Egypt.
So now I read from my previous material on the Scarab Initiations. The Scarab Initiations began by that name in Egypt, but are more ancient in time, taking much of their sacred knowledge from the Atuhula Book of Mu. Yet let us begin in Egypt, where this wisdom was organized into a specific series of initiations based on the 9 energy bodies, relating to the body of the scarab. The basis for these initiations was ultimately ascension of the vehicle, the body, the hosting Merkaba of the soul. This form of ascending was not intended to transport one permanently to another realm, but for the intention of traveling through the dimensions to eventually return to share the gained enlightenment with others. Once enough people had been through the Scarab Initiations, they would become immortals, and the whole earth and its souls would begin the process of ascension into the new Earth star. The Scarab Initiations were composed in that form by Thoth Rasmus of Afra, yet he had no illusions that these initiations would process in an orderly fashion through the ages. Able to see through the veil into the future, he knew the road would be a long and arduous one, and that the Scarab Initiations would become lost in time. So why did he put them into motion? Because Thoth, as an illumined solar lord and immortal himself, could see, know, and understand all the intricate connections this motion would create throughout time and space. One action setting off a series of small quakes through time, responses so small they may seem inconsequential, yet they result in a powerful human and planetary change by the time they reach ages way into the future. The Scarab Initiations continued in Egypt for centuries, but were eventually withdrawn as the Amun priesthood came into power. They were revived again with Akhenaten, who had access to many of Thoth's books. Thoth never wrote a book. His Akashic scribes read and then wrote down his fire inscriptions, which he had placed into Amenti, Thoth's Hall of Records. Now he wrote some journals, some little notes, shall we say, things of that nature, but with his own hand, but he never actually wrote books. He simply imprinted them into the Akasha. After the death of Akhenaten, the sacred text of the Scarab was sequestered once again, but it also traveled. It was sent into hiding in distant lands according to Thoth's original plan, which the secret order of the Scarab continued to fulfill. The Scarab Initiations were kept in the secret catacombs of the Library of Alexandria, which still exist, and were taught by Hypatia to her inner initiates. The Order of the Scarab placed copies of these sacred scrolls into the hands of the Grand Masters of Constantinople, the Moorish scholars of Spain, and the temples of India and Druid universities of the British Isles, among other far-reaching lands. The Scarab Initiations are sealed in the Akasha and available through that means only to those ready to receive them. However, Thoth guided me to create the seal of the Scarab, which you see in the image above. You can use this to get in touch with the 9 energy bodies and the Scarab ritual, the center of the Scarab being the 9th. See yourself as the center Scarab in the geometric of the seal, and then visualize and, if possible, physically posture to some extent, if only symbolic, the positions of the Scarab for each of those 9 energy bodies as described in our article, The 9 Energy Bodies. Now this article, I'm going to be going through the 9 energy bodies in just a moment, but we're going to continue here. As an example, the Ren, or vibrational name identifying the DNA codes of the individual's physical body, which is located symbolically at the mouth of the Scarab. You may wish to place your hands crossed in front of your mouth, about 3 inches from the face, and tone Ren, R-E-N, however many times you feel guided. Feel the sound coming from your throat, formed by your mouth, and going through into your hands and into your body, into your DNA. Be creative and let Spirit guide you with each energy body, Scarab coordinate, sacred name. After completing all 9 Scarabs, you become the Kuhu, adorned in the radiant garment of the Christ itself. Even though you are enacting the ritual on only the first level of perception, it can still be as powerful as you accept it to be, for yourself and for the offering you make of yourself to the spiritual soul of the earth. In the Electricum Alchemical Templates, which is another past work of mine which I will be profiling in a future video, the world keynote of Scarab Rising is: souls move beyond the world order of consensual reality to create open-ended soul harmonics. Consensual realities are created by many souls agreeing on a basic reality and then existing within those agreed perimeters, despite the disharmony among them. Soul harmonics are souls vibrating in harmonic resonance, with each soul experiencing multiple level realities of its own choosing. And so now we go to the 9 energy bodies of the Scarab. This is just a surface preliminary understanding of them, and yet you can go deep with them if you choose. In creating this surface presentation of the Scarab Initiations, or at least the part of it that deals with the 9 energy bodies, Thoth requested that I follow the basic outline as given in the book 9 Faces of Christ by Eugene E. Whitworth. So then Thoth gave me this greatly expanded version and understanding of these 9 bodies. So we begin. The first is the Ren, or vibrational name identifying the DNA codes of the individual's physical body, which is located symbolically at the mouth of the Scarab. The second is the Khat. Being the second of the three physical bodies, it carries the charge for and incorporates within it the entropic matter of the flesh. On the scarab, this is located symbolically at the center of its belly. The third is the Ka, which is the etheric double of the physical body. This is an incorporeal duplicate of the corporeal form, which can emulate that form in body, mind, and emotions, yet it can also anticipate the evolutionary path of the body, drawing it into a greater revolution upon the spiral of light-incorporated matter. This movement is nevertheless limited to the willingness of the whole spiritual entity to make that evolutionary leap. The circumference of the scarab, defined by its folded legs, represents the Ka. The fourth is the Ab, which is the first of the three emotional mental bodies. This is the mind at the center of the heart. It is the eye of the lion, where the beast, lower mind emotion, meets the royal sun, heart mind. This sacred heart of spiritualized intelligence is to be found at the point on the back of the scarab, where the two wings come together, forming a triangle in between the closed wings. Fifth is the Ba. This is the soul of the heart, the aspect of the emotional body that is able to move beyond its own evolutionary form, thus assisting the Ka to recreate itself within the higher paths of evolution. The Ba projects through the borderlands of the personal experience and into the realm of impersonal unification with the All. The wings of the scarab are the Ba points on this beetle. Six is the Kaibit, which means shadow. This is the last of the three emotional bodies. The Kaibit is the rectifier of the emotions. It discerns and judges the degrees of dissolution of lesser self and the vivification of greater self. It can be harsh on the lower emotions, but is a guardian of the balance of Mat, the Egyptian archetype of justice, within the ninefold human experience. It is through the Kaibit that the lords of karma govern over the soul. The eyes of the scarab hold the power of the Kaibit. Seven is Sekhem. This is the vital power contained within the three spiritual bodies. It is the vitality of the human experience in its process of identifying and moving towards supernal ecstasy. It is not the supernal ecstasy itself, but that which registers the existence of the supernal into the physical emotional bodies. Thus, to the ancients of Lemuria and Atlantis, it was known as the proclaimer. The Egyptian archetype Sekhmet derives her name from this vital body. The activity of the humming beat of the scarab wings personifies the Sekhem, whereas the Ba, it is the wings outstretched and ready for flight. Eight, the Sahu, the spiritual body created from the words of power. It is built through conscious invocation, and in its lesser form is strongly based in personal self-identity. Yet in its greater presence is orchestrated by planetary and universal service to the light. It is the Sahu that was utilized and called upon to create archetypes in the temples of old. Through the Sahu, so the soul may unify its being with the hierarchies of masters, angels, and other superior radiant intelligences. The face is the region on the scarab that symbolizes the Sahu, for it is on the human face that the light programs of the higher heaven, the Metatronic realm, are encoded into the human form. Nine, the Kuhu is the spiritual soul. This is the radiant garment, or Christ itself, that contains the language of light necessary to lift the soul to an exalted state within the higher heaven of Metatron. It is immortal. We find the Kuhu upon the back of the scarab, revealed only after the wings have parted and are raised to the sky. It is the Lakta Chakti of the Hunoras, a tribe of peoples in what is now India, which were contemporary with the latter-day era of Atlantis. The Lakta Chakti is the light which burns from the center of the atoma, or central sun of the body, in a nova, transforming the physical form into a radiant expression of the divine. We also could call this dynamic of the parting of the wings to reveal the Kuhu as the parting of the veil to reveal the Holy of Holies in the Temple of Solomon, or the rolling away of the stone on the tomb of Christ. Okay.
All right, and we are back. um, so, yes, so what I was sharing before the video began was something that you actually do elaborate on, of course, in the video itself, and maybe we can explore it a little more in terms of why this is being brought forward now, and the ways in which we can make use of it now. You were talking about the mudras,
Yes.
and our ability to concentrate successively on each of these spiritual bodies as a way of hastening our evolution towards ascension and the new earth star, right? Is that?
Yes, it is. So first of all, as I said in the video, this is not the whole Scarab Initiations by any means. This was something that Thoth put together so that we could understand, the very first slice of this. And even though it's just a little bit, it contains like a fractal, of a hologram. It contains the whole picture if you bring it into your being. So in the ancient actual initiations, they used the 9 bodies, energy body format to work with mudras, using mudras and sound, the sounds of the expressions. And they didn't just use the words like Ren or Kaibit or whatever. They would start with that, but they had other sacred chants that were brought through, that were connected to each one. They summoned that position, Ren or Kaibat or whatever, Sekhem, but then they would begin the chants that represented that. And then, of course, concurrent with that, they would have the movements that went with it. And so, but how do we simplify that for here and now? Well, you know, you can just start with the word and use whatever hand signal represents that to you. So you're going into a space, visualizing and picturing the energy of what is stated briefly for each one, and then allowing yourself with breathing and just, focusing to spontaneously use a movement, a hand, a mudra, and toning the word, whether it's Ren or Kaibat or whatever, and you're toning it again and again as you do the mudras. Now, that's the beginning of it. And you could use that through the whole thing if you want to do a process like daily or every week or whatever, or whenever it struck you, to go through all 9 and do that. And each time things will be just a little bit different because you're spontaneously using mudras. And in the ancient, experience of it, they had very set mudras that they used. And there was a reason for that, because it was a collective consciousness that they were building and broadening the scope of being able to create a foundation for future learning and consciousness. But now, did you have a question?
Go ahead.
But now in 2022, we're way beyond that, in the sense that that has already been established long ago. So what we're doing now is we're picking the ripe fruit off the tree. They grew the tree and they made sure the fruit was just right and watered and it was just right for us. And now we have that we can summon through these sacred names and energies and understanding of those energies, however briefly they may be given in the material. So now we can be free to express it in a spontaneous manner, to bring forth what we feel for us in that moment is the correct mudra, the correct tone, the correct sound, timing, because timing was part of it, how slowly you did it, how fast you did it, all of this. So before, it was all very structured for a purpose. Now it can be free form, because that structure has created the foundation. And now we can be free form with that potential and what we're bringing forth. Now, what are we bringing forth? Well, each one of these, have a definition, that like the Khat being the second of the 3 physical bodies, it carries the charge for and incorporates within it the entropic matter of flesh. On the scarab, this is located symbolically in the center of its belly. So, that's a pretty scientific thing. You don't have to try to understand every word of it, but it has to do with matter and how matter forms on the physical, and yet it is also a spiritual presence. Matter has a spiritual design, or it couldn't take form. Everything has a spiritual design. Oh, you can't see it, my cup. Everything has a spiritual design. It's designed in the spirit, and then it's made flesh or made matter, So that particular one is saying to you, okay, I'm working with my incorporate self, the inner incorporate self, the spiritual self, but I'm also working to I'm identifying it so that it's summoning it, to bring it into physical matter, to bring it into a conscious matter realm where it affects my physical being and my DNA. It enlightens the connection between the physical and the non-physical. Of course, from the Thothic perspective, the spiritual is just, there's spiritual just gets denser and denser until we call it matter. There's no real separation. But in the experiential living that we're about on this planet, and the dualities that are operating here in the way they are operating, we could say very truly physical and non-physical. So there's need for a greater connection there in that particular one, which is what was it? It was cut, is identifying that. So, you just go through them and don't get too heavy in the head about it, but just, okay, what does this really mean to me? And kind of work with that energy. And when you've done it a few times, if you want to do it at all, then you're going to find you don't have to, you can just turn loose of that and just say, okay, I'm just going in the flow here, and just working with it, because the body absorbs that. The mind says, okay, I've learned that. You don't even have to think about it anymore because I've got it. And you could just go through the flow of the positions. What this is doing is it's refining the neurological system of the body to reflect the greater consciousness. Because when we're moving toward light principle 40, when we're moving toward what both calls personal and planetary ascension, why do we have such a thing? All we need to do is just leave this body behind. I mean, I don't want to take the 73-year-old, 80, maybe 83, but I get through, or 93 body with me, on the other side. I was like, I don't want to do that. Why do I want to do that? And he said, well, you're not taking the old flesh or whatever, your body, or the imperfections of it. You're taking the coded relevance of the physicality that you created through spirit, and you're moving it into a new plane of expression, but it's still incorporates the knowledge and the wisdom of the old form. And why do we want to do that? Well, because the earth as a sacred crucible is not finished yet. It's going through a process of transmutation into a new level of consciousness, a new state where we can work with it further. It's a very sacred vessel. And it's not like, oh, well, we're through with this now, let's go into something else. We'll be through with the rocks and the soil and the physicals, but we won't be through with the consciousness, the codes of light that are sustained within it. That comes with the planetary genius, moves through the process with us. So I kind of got off on a soapbox there, but the point is this particular Scarab Initiations, or working with the sacred bodies, that part of it that we're being given here is helping you to register the connections between the subtle, the non-physical subtle, and the physical, and allowing that communication to take place. And that allows you to be transported, even if it's momentarily, to the future state of consciousness that we call future anyway, because everything is now, in the ultimate sense. So, you could go on and on with it, but that's basically the reason they did it. Now, the actual Scarab Initiations were much vaster than what we're looking at here. This is just working with the energy bodies. The Scarab Initiations go into a lot of different platforms that I'm not privy to. I guess I haven't reached that level yet. So I can't talk about it, but I'm just saying that, this is a slice of the whole. But when you take a little piece of the pie, you've tasted the whole pie, because you know that the deeper you dig into the pie, the more pie you eat, the fuller you get, the fuller of light you get, So you can sample it. You can sample that little bite and get the picture of the whole presentation. And we're so close on this planet to breaking through the old paradigm and being able to see what was right in front of us all along, and we couldn't see it. And when we do that, that's when we're at those calls where we have taken upon us the awareness of the pyramidus radius matrix. And we're in that platform, and we're ready to experience, to learn, to reformat a lot of our thinking and the way we see ourselves and what we do. And as we do that, it's just a really fabulous dimensional course of understanding, much freer than we can learn now. And as we go into that space and start working with those energies, then comes a moment somewhere in all of that where the pixie dust is sprinkled, and we are allowed to literally go through the portal and go into the new earth. I'm simplifying it here, but there's a stage before that. And that stage is what we're just on the cusp of entering, many of us. Not because some Godhead has chosen us, but because we have chosen ourselves. And we need to be open to that. This is just one little thing that I'm giving you here that Thoth gave me that may or may not strike a chord in you. And if it does, well, go for it.
All right. Well, there are so many things that come up for me as I'm listening to you now on this. First of all, I just want to touch briefly on mudras. We're using the term mudras in a matter of fact kind of way, as if everybody knows what they are.
Well, yeah.
And many of our, we have an unusual audience here at Blue Star Rising. I would say a fairly well-informed one. For any newcomers, mudras are something you hear about in Hatha yoga. You also, hear about them in, deeper aspects of Hindu philosophy. As a Sanskrit term, a mudra is most often, a particular position of the hands that has an energetic correlation such that it can help induce certain states of consciousness. And so, and then there are, we call like a maha or great mudra, which has more to do with postures, and a combination of the posture of the body and the motion of the hands, such that as you are doing, a concentration on one of these 9 bodies in association with that sound, right, of the name of that particular body, that the mudra is very facilitative of that consciousness transformation. Would that be accurate in your?
That would be. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, another thing that comes up for me, Maya, when I'm talking about this is, that everything that manifests in the physical is just a somewhat denser vibration, sort of slowed down vibration. It's a continuum between physical and spiritual. It's not, as you say, a sharp dividing line. Well, there's a physical realm over here, and the spiritual realm over here. But that, the physical is the astral blueprint. What I want to bring forward here is that just helping perhaps some of our viewers in translating it into terms they're already familiar with. The astral realm, the astral universe, where conventionally speaking, we think of, where we go after we die. Well, it's where we go. On one level, of course, we're not really going anywhere. We have shed the physical body. It's reached the end of its usefulness. And so the astral body, for example, Paramahansa Yogananda in the Autobiography of a Yogi, particularly in the chapter on the resurrection of Sri Yukteswar, goes into a lot of detail about the exact makeup of the astral body. And that, the astral spine and the chakras actually are the blueprint that make the physical body possible. Mm-hmm. It's, at each chakra, are the light and energy counterparts of what then manifests in the physical as the fetus is formed. And, that our physical bodies are completely dependent upon this hidden astral reality and couldn't exist without it, that it's a denser vibration of manifestation of it. So when we're talking about something that allows us to get in touch with and to strengthen, as I understand it, this, as you say, it's a very, very simplified doorway into what, the deep Scarab Initiations were back then. But now, as you say, the tree has been grown, the fruit is here. We don't need to go back and somehow through the Akasha, just revivify and relive the entire deep, full Scarab Initiations as practiced thousands of years ago in Egypt. That we can tune into this, what you might say, empowerment or acceleration of our ability to access this hidden dimension, this blueprint, as you might say, so that we can accelerate our evolution towards that magical, transformative moments for each of us. So anyway, I just wanted to bring some of that out, to help kind of elucidate for some of our viewers, some of these aspects. It's something, that I do here on Blue Star Rising on occasion. I'll just, take what you have already very clearly shared and just say, okay. And in my experience, in Kriya Yoga, whatever, that there is another perspective to offer that can help kind of broaden it to let people have another view,
Yes.
another viewpoint on it.
Right. Sorry, this is not in my control.
What is it? Oh, the cat.
Yes, pulling my clothes off.
Oh,
Oh
yeah, that's just not something you want a cat to do while you're on the air, is to pull your clothes.
Okay, I'm sorry, Michael. That was very
Right.
beautifully elucidating. It certainly was.
Right, but I'm sure our viewers really enjoy these moments with your cats. Up there on the ziggurat, you and the cats on the ziggurat with the Milky Way behind you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and what you're saying there, it's like that's true for all of it. For instance, I have other things I'm going to be sharing along the lines of this, and it's not like one thing is like it. These are pieces of a whole tapestry, and every time you touch into one piece of that ancient tapestry, something is revealed for the present moment in your life, and then you touch into another tapestry, and another thing comes forward for you in the now moment. So it's like bringing all these things together to create your own tapestry, and not duplicating the past, but taking the understanding and the energies of the past as presented in such things as the Scarab energy bodies thing here, and incorporating it in your own forms, in your own expression, in your own spirit, where it feels appropriate, So that's really all it's about. But
Yeah.
I feel I would be remiss if I didn't share these things that have come to me through so many years of time, even the smaller things like this, because somewhere someone is going to say, wow, that's just what I was looking for today.
Well, and it doesn't feel quite so small to me, this piece that you're sharing here, it feels important.
Mm-hmm.
And, particularly for our viewers on Blue Star Rising who are tuned into, the material you've been sharing, and that, that it's an unfortunate thing these days to me about spiritual seeking. On one level, it's fantastic. We have the internet. We have available to us at the click of a mouse. We've got available to us, wisdom that was hidden and contained within lineages for centuries, priestly secrecy or distortions over the years that is now coming out. And that's great when you want to, okay, I need to find my own way, my own path, what I resonate to. The risk is, of course, just being confused and bewildered by this dazzling variety of paths and approaches and practices and lineages and gurus, and some real, some phony, a lot of them phony, a lot of them exploitative, and that, like, for example, here, at the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine, depicted behind me, which was, my spiritual home for many years and continues to be an important part of my spiritual life and practice. There is the beauty of the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda and Self-Realization Fellowship is that it is completely honoring of all the many other true paths towards the divine realization of our souls. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, completely owns and honors the comprehensive, precise, fully explicated and brought forth path and teachings and meditation techniques that Yogananda brought from India, from his line of gurus, from Swami Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri Mahashaya, Mahavatar Babaji, Bhagavan Krishna, and Jesus. That, it's to take what we're offering here, the Scarab Initiations and the 9 bodies and the sounds and understandings associated with them, and to feel your way into a mudra and a sound and meditation. That I will go so far as to say that my respect for everything that you've brought forward inclines me to say that, among the spiritual smorgasbord out there of a multiplicity of confusing, bewildering lineages, techniques, and paths, and you do a Google search on, meditation techniques, that, what has been brought forward through you from the Thothic stream is powerful and real and not accidental. And for each one of the souls out there who are listening to this or have tuned into our previous programs, there are no accidents. It's no accident that you're viewing this. You may have a past life connection to me or to Maya or to Thoth or to Egypt itself, such that once you open that door of meditating on the Scarab Initiations, as you say, Maya, it's like suddenly a whole other reality can open up for you within your soul, in your mind and heart, and your practice. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I just wanted to explore that a little bit, simply because it's so easy to become bewildered and overwhelmed when we try to find, okay, the world's going to Hades in a handbasket. And, between, COVID and the pandemic and the agenda and the war and the climate change and everything else, I'm supposed to come up with some practices to get me to the new Earth Star. And then, and I've taken my kids to soccer practice, and, my marriage is falling apart or whatever. Let's just keep it simple and gather what you resonate with, and just be a good person and tune in to your soul and spirit.
Yes, that's where it's really at. It's like there are a lot of disciplines and studies, and very valuable ones out there. And if you feel guided to one, that's wonderful, and most certainly pursue it if that's what your heart calls you to do. But don't feel left out if you physically just don't have the time and the energy to do certain things that you might be called to do otherwise. I mean, this is a very stressful time in the world. And even before this, it was difficult. And now it seems almost impossible for some people. And yet they want to reach out and they want to do these things. But if your heart's desire is there, it will lead you into the way that you can be accommodated to receive those energies. And it may not be the way that's being presented in the moment, So, and if you have the time and the energy to do it, by all means do it if that's what's calling you. But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And I've had people say to me, oh gosh, I feel like I'm just being left behind because I don't have the time to do what I want to do with my spiritual life. And that's very frustrating. I'm not trying to coat it over with sunshine. It's difficult. It's difficult. But at the same time, the universal all, and the beings, whether they're star kindred and earth kindred or angelic or whatever, they're there to help you find a way to do this that is graceful and not putting you into an even worse position of stress. Just open your heart and mind to that, and it will come to you.
Right. And to have you, led into a feeling of being unworthy, or, like, for example, okay, I come from this big Irish Catholic family, 10 kids, and my father was a holistic pediatrician, and my mother was his partner, and, doing the nutritional and biochemical workups. And We had a 263-acre dairy farm in Southwest Wisconsin that, we'd go to and work on the summers, and a big house in Oak Park, Illinois. And so the level of stress and raising 10 children who were born in a 13-year span, picture my mother with, like 6 toddlers running around simultaneously. And at the same time, there are these high souls who feel this yearning, like, well, we need to, they were mystic Catholics. But so at one point in the late 1960s, they came across the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. And they actually went to some seminar by a monk in downtown Chicago. And I never heard any of this. I never knew of this, right? I found out years and years later, because I grew up, the Autobiography of Yogi by Yogananda was on my parents' bookshelf. And so I saw this face on this book, this enlightened, blissful face, but I never read it. And it turns out that my parents actually applied for Yogananda's lessons and received the lessons in the mail while they were raising all 10 of us. And so the lessons, are saying, so this is a dispensation from the divine to work in the spine, accelerate your spiritual evolution, to experience direct communion with God in the higher centers and in the 1,000-petal lotus in the brain. And you eventually, you practice the Hong Sau technique and the Om technique, and if you seek it, the Kriya Yoga technique. And they were stirred and drawn by this, and getting up every morning to practice Yogananda's energization exercises, learn Hong Sau, learn Om, apply for it. It was not happening with 10 kids running around. So, bless their souls. It's like, and they were, beautiful high souls on a healing mission. That was their dharma. And, when they told me this, like, oh, well, we could have, we should have. And I was like, Mom, Dad, you did your soul work. And you went to the seminar probably just so there'd be a copy of the Autobiography of a Yogi on the bathroom bookshelf, so that Michael, when he goes in there, could get intrigued and 20 years later become a yogi. So, just by way of saying that whatever the levels of stress that each one of us has in our lives, and I've had to do it myself a lot, I'm very far from perfect, very far from perfect in my spiritual practice, and just have to keep giving yourself a break, forgive yourself, and remember that we are where we are, and we're probably a lot closer than we think, a lot worthier than we know, a lot holier than we're willing to admit to ourselves. So.
Yeah. Well, it's down to desire, not wanting or wishing, but true desire that burns in the heart. And if you keep that fire burning, however your life presents that to you is going to be, it is going to be the spiritual gift that you turn around and give to the world. So, maybe it doesn't turn out the way you think it's going to, but if the desire is there, and I'm talking about the deep personal spiritual desire, not desire to eat chocolate, something like that.
That'd be a lower desire.
Right. But I don't know why that came to mind.
Not so much lower. Chocolate is elevating and makes us feel like we're loved.
Right. But anyway, it's if it calls you, you're answering the call, even if you can't answer it exactly the way you think it should be answered.
Yeah, it's that holy desire, the higher desires, that we came here to experience and manifest. It's reminding me of, so this background of seeing behind us, I came to Los Angeles in 1991, ostensibly to pursue my acting career, and I ended up getting a job as the monastery cook here at the Lake Shrine. And I was just so incredibly grateful for it. I was still going to auditions, and I'd been an actor for 15 years, but I wanted to transform my life. I wanted to immerse in meditation. And so I was the only non-monk working in the ashram. the cook would ordinarily have been like a young monk, a postulant, or a novice, probably a novice monk, working with the monks. The monks eat in silence, and it's a monastic environment. So I was very lucky to be in it. Part of my job was that, so the stairway you see back here, there's a stairway on this side. No, it's on this side. That's stairway. There's a stairway there
Okay,
going up.
I see it. I see it.
Right. And the kitchen was up here. This is where the temple is now. There was a kitchen and a shed and a few rooms. And so people would go around the lakeshore, and then they're like, oh, the stairway, I want to check out the stairway. And they'd wander up there. They weren't supposed to be there because it was a monastic environment, not for the public. So occasionally people would wander on. It was my job to say, I'm sorry, this is actually a monastic area. So one day I'm up there. I happen to step outside the kitchen door, and there's this young man coming up the steps, and he's just like starry-eyed and looking around, and he's got long hair and just like this sweet bliss bunny sort of guy. And he's looking around. I have to come up to him, and I say, hi, I'm sorry, I just need to let you know this is monastic area, and so you're not really allowed up here. And he says, oh, so you're a monk? Well, no, I mean, I'm not a monk, but I'm the ashram cook here at the lake shrine. And so, and he looks at me as if I am some angelic manifestation. And he goes, wow, you're the ashram cook at the lake shrine? Wow.
Oh, how
Right.
sweet. How sweet.
As if it was virtually the next thing to an angel manifesting. Yeah.
Oh,
And so he went on his way, and it stopped me, and I thought, well, I'm chopping onions and mopping floors and cleaning toilets, and it's fine. I'm very grateful to have the position. But, and I had a lot of stress going on in my life. And I just think, wow. And it reminded me of something that Sri Mrinalini Mata, who succeeded Daya Mata as the Reverend Mother of the Order, said that we get these opportunities, such as I was given, through our own merit and desire. It is a blend of the devotee's merit and desire, holy desire, as you describe it, right? So I thought, well, however much of a schlep I may feel like a lot of the time, I must have had, like in Sound of Music, for all of us baby boomers, somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good, right? So anyway, so we've all done more good than
we realize.
realize or like to admit. And by virtue of the fact that you're watching this elevating program, my friend. Right? Anyway, just thought I'd share that story.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. I was really moved by that. It's such a touching story.
Yeah. So, and if you want to go to the lake shrine, ladies and gentlemen, since COVID, they've got a website where you just need to call to make an appointment, and you can walk around the grounds, and there's shrines to all the major religions. There's a beautiful grotto to the Virgin Mary. There's a statue of Jesus on the hill. There's, Buddha and Krishna, and a shrine to all the world religions, Islam, everything in the courtyard. And it's free and beautiful. It's right near where Sunset Boulevard hits Pacific Coast Highway and the beach near the southern edge of Malibu. So one of the holiest places in the Western Hemisphere, if not the holiest place in terms of its vibrations.
It is. It's beautiful. I was there once, and I was trying to think of the year, Michael. I was thinking, would it be something if you were there when I was there?
Oh, would have been sometime in the 90s?
Well, it was the 70s. Maybe that's too early. Well, okay, I know when it was. It was when Patty Hearst was kidnapped.
1974.
Okay, that's when my mother and I came to, we had a special visit with Jess Stern in his home. Many of you may not know who he is, but he was pretty hot spiritual writer back in the 70s. and he was interested in my work. It never came to anything. We didn't do a book on me, but he was thinking of doing it. I don't know, things happen. But anyway, it was a really nice visit with him. And he was also very interested in Elvis, and we had been to Vegas to see Elvis, and and later I would wind up with a copy of the book that Jess Stern gave to Elvis. It's a very special book for me, and it's autographed by him. But
the actual one,
yeah, the actual one. But so we went there. Just tell the story very briefly, and then I don't remember, it was just before or after that we came to the lake shrine, and I don't remember when I had this particular dream, whether it was before the lake shrine or after the lake shrine. But what happened was, Patty had not been kidnapped yet, and that night I had a dream of that I was a young woman. Then they were holding me hostage or something, and they wanted to give me this shot, and they were trying to give me this, to put me out or something. And I was, fighting them and all of this stuff. And the very next morning I woke up, and it was announced that Patty Hearst had been kidnapped. Right.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty profound for me. But anyway, so then somewhere in all of that trip, my mother and I went to the lake shrine, and it was just such a beautiful experience. I really, really loved it. I don't believe I'd read Yogananda's autobiography yet. I don't think I read it until my former husband, Simeon, introduced me to the book, which would have been in the 1990s. And then I read it several times since then. But we knew this was a holy place, and we could feel it. I mean, we wanted to go there. And that was where I saw his picture and felt his energy. And, it was just a really, really beautiful experience. But probably, was that before your time there or something?
Yes, that was considerably before I arrived. I started working in the ashram at the lake shrine on April 30th, 1991.
Okay.
And for 3.5 years, I was the ashram cook there. And then we moved into the new retreat. And so when you went to the lake shrine, Elvis was actually still going there himself.
Yes, he would have been there himself.
He would pull in on his Harley to the lake shrine probably with some of his buddies, entourage and all that, because Elvis couldn't walk around like a normal person, unfortunately. But yeah, in fact, we are in touch with a former monk who was present at some of Elvis's visits, and we hope to interview him for the documentary, which is going well.
Yes.
More will be revealed soon, we hope, with some good news. We'll see. Keep your fingers crossed on the documentary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we've taken quite a journey, Michael, and you've done from Scarab Beatles to
right.
Elvis Presley.
Yeah, from Beatles to Elvis and back. There we go. All right. Well, it's all felt like it's on the same thread, right? The same unfolding. So we always like to remind everybody that, of course, Maya's Akashic readings can be scheduled on her website, the link for which appears below the video here on YouTube. And, wonderful depth of teachings available on her website. I particularly enjoy the glossary of all the Thothic terms, and each one is a link to a marvelous deep dive. And of course, please do like and subscribe, as everybody's always asking you to do, and share it around if you think you have friends who would be interested. So with that, from Blue Star Rising, thank you for joining us, being with us, and God bless us, everyone.
This all, everyone, yes.
We'll see you again soon.
Aloha.
Aloha. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.